Okay, son. So let's talk briefly about the lesson learned in regards to your experience with the second focal plane versus someone using a first focal plane type scope.
So, with a second focal plane scope, your adjustments for elevation differ at each magnification. So, at 4 times, at 8 times, and at 12 times, you're going to have different changes in elevation to hit your target. Whereas with a first focal plane, the reticule is going to adjust with the zoom level so that it stays consistent.
And how did that affect you specifically today on your hunt?
So, in the excitement of seeing a herd of elk, I rushed to make a shot because I was worried I was going to spook them away. And in doing so, I did not change my optic from 4 times to 12 times. I was given a lays or a range of 460 yards.
About that.
I moved forward about 100 yards to my knowledge, and when I took a shot at an elk at the very top of the hill, silhouetted on the top of the hill, it was like a 330 yard shot. I was still in my 4 times zoom, so when I made my adjustment that I've been practicing, which is 1.5 reticules up, in the 4 times zoom, it's way higher than that. So I ended up shooting probably 2 feet over top of the elk instead of making some type of contact. So a good piece of advice that your friend Justin gave us, and this would have worked, is just to always keep your crosshairs on the animal no matter what. I think I would have at least made a shot if I did that, but because I was trying to adjust, and I was also worried about the elevation shooting uphill. I mean, I've never shot uphill before. I was in a kneeling position shooting uphill. I think I overcompensated for that, and doing so in 4 times zoom, completely missed the shot.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned. All right, Dad. So, as a lifelong whitetail deer hunter, what was the biggest difference between hunting whitetail and trying to hunt elk?
For sure, elk being a migratory animal, huge difference between that and a whitetail. So you're not going to sit up in a tree stand and wait for an elk to exhibit behavior from being in the same territory. A whitetail will typically, in their lifetime, cover maybe a mile or two radius, where an elk is migrating. I'm not even sure the amount of miles that they're migrating, but it could be hundreds of miles that an elk is migrating. So the one thing that I have learned with the elk is that they're either there or they're not there. And when they're there in large herds, something totally different than hunting whitetail as well. So when you see elk, you're going to see them together, and also we found that they're very social creatures. So they really like to hang out with cows on private land, which makes it a lot more challenging as well, especially hunting here in Colorado. But yeah, I would say just being a migratory creature is the big difference between an elk and a whitetail.
And how would you tell someone who hasn't hunted in Colorado, how do they prepare for the cold of a third rifle season?
Well, I would say to be prepared to move a lot. If you're sitting in a tree stand for You know, some people I know sit in a tree stand all day long. You're not going to sit still in, you know, in single digit temperatures. So you're going to move a lot, and you're going to find that you're going to cover a lot of ground. You're going to see a lot of elevation, and you got to be prepared for it. Not only do you have the difference in elevation to deal with, you know, you just really physically and mentally have to be prepared to cover a lot of ground.
How do you tell the difference between a mule deer and an elk?
Well, there's lots of literature, lots of magazines, lots of pictures. There's this thing called Google. Check it out. Make sure you know the difference. Make sure you understand the difference in the scat, in the actual the prints that a mule deer will leave versus an elk. You know, it's something I think we could have been a little bit more prepared for. But on the same token, you know, there's so much wildlife here. It makes it so exciting. It really doesn't matter, you know, what you're seeing out there at first. It kind of keeps you, you know, going between the beauty of the country and all the wildlife, all the different game that you see is absolutely incredible. But once you learn, you know, specifically what you're looking for, and you have an experience like we had today, there's just nothing that compares.
Any closing thoughts?
Just take things as the experience they are. Enjoy them for the experience. Don't take things too much to heart. I mean, you know, we all learn, and you know, there's a lot to learn, and you know, we're just getting started with hunting elk, so we got a lot more to learn in the future, and you know, to do it with my son, it was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to learning more next year, hopefully, and the year after, and so on.
Cool.
So, son, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned on our 2022 elk hunt?
Well, I learned many lessons this elk hunt. First and foremost, always bring more than 5 rounds into the field. Secondly, utilize your assets. I kept my rangefinder back from the action, which was a fatal mistake. Third, know how to use your scope. I attempted to make a shot with adjustments on the 4x optic instead of the 12x optic. And lastly, you have more time than you think. I was in a rush. I was worried that they were going to get away, but I realized that after 4 shots, the elk were still standing there. And I could have taken much more time. So we learned a lot as far as tracking elk, understanding their scat and their footprints in the snow, and where they like to walk. We did a good job at tracking, got much better at it. But when we actually found the elk, those mistakes cost me some meat in my freezer.
And these lessons make us a much better hunter in the future.
Next year, I'll be twice the hunter I am this year.
For sure.